I'm a little under the weather, which is why my voice might sound a little funny. We've had some wind here in Southern California. It's been raising hell with my allergies. I have a little bit of bedhead. Apologize for that. Try to flatten it out. Hopefully it looks okay. Anyways, I had some suggestions that I should talk a little more specifically about certain areas of my involvement in Scientology. So right now I chose to do a video on the Sea Org. If you don't know already, the Sea Org is basically the elite core of Scientology. Core as in C-O-R-E and core as in C-O-R-P-S. They essentially manage all of Scientology. They hold all the copyrights to all of the books and the lectures that L Ron Hubbard wrote and spoke. The highest level of Sea Org management is located in Riverside County in Southern California at Hemet Base, it's called. They pretty much have taken over that, like a little section of road. It's a gigantic, used to be a resort. Now it's used to imprison people, apparently, from some of the court testimony that I've read. They have, I don't know, hundreds of people locked up there. It's crazy. I'm glad I never went. I almost went at one point, but I'm happy I didn't. During my involvement in the Sea Org was 2001 to 2004. I was 15 years old when I joined, and I was shortly after my 18th birthday when I left. I was followed around for about maybe a year before, maybe a year and a half before I joined, by recruiters. They're ruthless. They corner you in a room with 4 or 5 people, some higher management people. When you're raised in Scientology, you're taught to look up to Sea Org members as though they were police or whoever kids look up to, you know. You're taught that they're authorities, that they're the most ethical beings on planet Earth, yada yada yada. So I basically ended up getting picked by these people to be recruited, I guess because I looked like fresh meat. I don't know. They're like, shh, they smelled blood in the water because I said one time I might be interested in being a Sea Org Power Ranger. So eventually they recruited me. They drove me into the deepest, darkest depression. They followed me around at school. They followed me home from school. They came to my house at all the hours of the night. They kept my parents up. They called 25, 30 times in a row when I refused to answer the phone. They wouldn't take no for an answer for a year. My dad would scream at me and throw the phone at me, telling me that it's my fault that they're calling and to tell them to stop. And he wouldn't listen to me when I told him. I had already tried to tell them to stop. Many times I tried to tell them to stop and they didn't listen. So I didn't have any support from my parents during this time, and these people would come pick me up and feed me steak dinners and show me their cool Camaro. And so eventually I fell for it. So at 15 years old, I signed a contract for 1 billion years. Basically, the idea is that you live life after life in Scientology. They believe in reincarnation. So you're signing over the next 1 billion years of your immortal life to the Church of Scientology. Obviously, I broke that contract, thankfully. I'm not there anymore. Hopefully, I won't be recruited again. So I was there. I was recruited for the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles, which is on L Ron Hubbard Way in Hollywood, California. It's near the Los Angeles Medical Center, the Kaiser Hospital. I worked there for maybe two of my, I'd say 2.5 years, maybe. It starts off with a little boot camp they call the EPF, which is the Estates Project Force. I've written about that on my blog. It's basically supposed to build you up to being a Sea Org member. Really, they just break you down so that you have no will of your own, and your will becomes the will of Scientology, and that's it. You don't question orders. The berthings, what they call where you sleep, the berthings, they're nice. I was promised all kinds of days off. I was promised that I would have a nice place to live. Promised that people would be good to me. Promised that I would be taken care of shortly after joining it. I don't know that was true. You're basically on your own there. No matter how old you are, they don't care. I was on the EPF. I mean, you have to run everywhere. I had to clean bathrooms all day long. There's a study time. You study nothing but L Ron Hubbard. You don't study anything outside of L Ron Hubbard's works. I clean bathrooms, clean pots. With industrial strength soap. I was on there for about a month till you learn how to be a proper Sea Org member. They teach you everything from brushing your teeth to tying a tie, everything. You have to learn everything all over again. I guess it's for kids like me who were never grew up old enough to learn how to do those things. So my parents, I didn't get to see them very often. My dad, he was on services at the org that I worked at, on L Ron Hubbard Way, but I hardly got to see him. They discouraged me from seeing him. A few times I would take off and go to lunch with my family and get screamed at by people in the org for leaving, and they didn't care that I wanted to see my family. Doesn't matter to them. The family bond doesn't matter in Scientology. It's all about the group. That's all that matters. So my parents did what they could to support me. Inside the Sea Org, a lot of things were stolen from me, which is, my dad screamed at me about that. I lost a lot of things he gave me while I was in there. Tried to tell him that people were stealing it. He just told me, oh, you need to lock them up, blah, blah, blah. He screamed at me over the phone, frustrated about stuff, like he always did. So after, I don't know, I worked in the basement for a while. I took care of their central files, which is basically where they keep a record of everybody that's ever had contact with the organization, address, correspondence, phone numbers, everything. If you wonder where the mailing list is, that is the mailing list. I basically maintained it for a while. There was a little project to scan these things and put them into electronic archives, and I was working on that for a while. It was pretty miserable being in the basement. Sometimes I'd be up till, most of the time during my Sea, I didn't go to bed before midnight while I was in the Sea Org. On average, maybe 4 hours of sleep a night for 3 years. Eventually, I was moved upstairs. I worked in what's called the Reg area. Scientology has registrars, who are the people that take the money. They're the ones that sign you up for services. And I worked in that area as an assistant to one of the registrars, and sat there while people signed away their life savings, tens of thousands of dollars charged to their credit card. I did not have any concept of money at the time, so to me it didn't matter. Now thinking back on it, it was pretty messed up, some of the things that were going on. People taking out second, third mortgages. It's crazy the amount of money that went through there. Scientology makes a lot of money. So after that, I was chosen to be on the training corps, and I said corps so you know which one I'm talking about. It's the training corps. And I basically went to the Flag Land Base, which is in Florida. I didn't want to go at first, and then I was told, well, if I didn't go, I would have to endure confessionals until I decided to go. That's all the Sea Org is about, is intimidation. There's no answer to anything. So I obviously went, and I didn't want to leave my family, which is why I didn't want to go. I had hardly seen my family this whole time. A whole day, spending a whole day with them, I maybe got to spend 4 or 5 days over 3 years with them at the most, if I was lucky. And eventually I went to Flag Land Base, and I was studying to be a course supervisor, which is basically people that make sure that you learn Scientology correctly. They're enforcers, and brainwashing enforcers, I guess, is a good word for them. And so after I was there for a while, eventually I developed a relationship with someone that I was a roommate with, and he and I were caught one time, and so I was basically sent back home and kicked out of the Sea Org, but not before being thoroughly embarrassed in front of, hundreds of people during my time there. While I was leaving, when you're leaving, you're considered scum. You're treated like scum. I worked in the basement, managing moldy files, putting moldy papers in order, alphabetical order. I worked in the book stocks. There's tunnels. If you go down in the basements of the organizations, the blue organizations on L Ron Hubbard Way, there's tunnels underneath that entire street. And I spent my time in those tunnels, part of my time anyway, in those tunnels organizing moldy paper. And then another part of the time I spent shredding hundreds of thousands of documents, with so much that I had different color paper coming out of my nose. The shredder's in an enclosed room. I don't know what they were shredding. I didn't read the papers. I wasn't supposed to, but I shredded a lot. Some of it was promotional stuff. Some of it was confidential information. I didn't read it, unfortunately, so I don't know anything special. That that's so I spent my and then oh yeah, during this time I had to do confessionals. I had to sit in front of maybe a 45, 50-year-old man and tell him about my sexual fantasies and my masturbation habits. And I was 17 years old at the time. Now I know they waited till I was 18 so I could sign the little paper I needed to sign to say that I had a happy time in the Sea Org. I had to sign this stupid release form that said, "Oh, you can't sue Scientology," and in exchange they gave me $500, which I used to buy some clothes and stuff before I went home. So I was home. I went home. I was dropped off. Of course, nobody notified my parents. I called my dad when I got home, and he had no idea that I was even leaving. So nobody bothered to call him the whole time that I was going through my process, and I wasn't allowed to use the phone. So he had no clue that I was headed home. So when I got home, he was in shock. He left work. He came home. He yelled at me, called me all kind of nasty names, called me a fag. He told me I was a piece of shit. Told me that he expected me to molest my brother one day. How can he let me sleep in the same room with my brother? And I mean, he said a lot of hateful things to me, and that could have been Scientology speaking, or it could have been him. I don't really know. I like to blame it on Scientology, but sometimes you wonder. Scientology is very against being gay, just like most religions. Anyway, after that, I left. I went for a walk for a good 6 hours to think about what I was going to do with my life and if I even wanted to live anymore. And I decided I did, and that's why I'm here today. So I decided I would go ahead and get my my life together, get a job, take advantage of the resources I had. I lied to my parents for a long time to pretend so that they would help me out until I could get on my own 2 feet. Because if I had told them the truth, they would never have. That I wanted nothing to do with Scientology, they would never have helped me, and I would have been on my own. So I lied to them for, I don't know, a good 8 years. And I finally got on my own 2 feet, and I made some good friends. I made a lot of good friends. So that was my time in the Sea Org. Life in the Sea Org. Communal showers. I should go into detail into where I lived. I lived in a room with about maybe 30, 40 other men. Age range from 13 all the way up to 65, 75. I think there was a 75-year-old man in there. We all shared a room. It stunk. It was nasty. People farting, burping all the time. I mean, they're all crammed. It's like 40 people crammed into a room. It was terrible. The windows are broken. There was no AC or heat. So it was either really cold or really hot when it wasn't a nice season. The showers are communal, and again, 13 to 75 all using the same shower. When you get sick. When you get sick in the Sea Org, well, Scientology, first of all, says that all illness is basically your fault. So if you get sick, it's your own downfall. It's not because of the virus that infected you. So you're responsible for your sickness, so you need to do something about it, which is usually a confessional. So you go do a confessional and talk about how you jacked off 20 times in the last week, whatever. And you get embarrassed and harassed, and all's well and good, and then you go back to work. After doing some conditions or whatever, and telling everybody that you jacked off. So after that, so when you get sick, basically they put you in what's called isolation, and this is a room full of sick people. And they take all the sick people and they put them all in one room so that you can't get anybody else sick. When I was in isolation, there was a stomach flu going around, and there was maybe, 15, 20 people in that room, all with diarrhea and vomiting, and there was only one restroom, so you can imagine it was pretty nasty in there. It stunk, and they would come with some guy or some girl who would come from the galley with food, and she would push the cart up to the room and then run away like she was going to get infected. And she would take the cart, and then we would take the cart inside and eat it and leave all the plates, and somebody would come in a biohazard suit and take everything. Not really, but you know what I mean. It was sort of ridiculous. They treated you like crap if you were sick. You were scum if you were sick. During the time that I was what's called routing out, which is basically leaving the Sea Org, I was isolated from everyone. Also, I was expected not to talk to anyone. Nobody would look at me. I was treated like crap. I mean, it was terrible. It's awful. Nobody should treat another human that way. And so I have certainly seen the worst in people. It was pretty bad. And yeah, so that was my time in the Sea Org. I'm trying to think if there's anything else important that I should say. I'm trying to think of anything significant. I mean, the Sea Org shreds a lot of documents. I don't know what they are, but they shred a lot of stuff. I mean, talking tens of thousands of papers. I wish I had read some of the ones that I was shredding. I think that's it. I didn't talk. Oh yeah, another thing. You only get paid maybe about $15 to $20 a week during your time in the Sea Org. So people don't always have deodorant or soap or underwear or very many clothes. I mean, you're only provided a shirt, a tie, and a pants, and you get about maybe 2 shirts if you're lucky, 2 pairs of pants if you're lucky, and so people tend to wear dirty shirts and dirty ties, and they tend to stink. I know I stunk a few times, and you don't always have time to shower because you want to sleep, so you kind of have to choose sometimes between sleeping and showering. Sometimes you have to choose between sleeping and eating. I mean, you don't really have, it's terrible. I mean, all you do is work. I worked from 8 o'clock in the morning to midnight, nonstop, at 15 years old. I managed to get a California high school proficiency exam during my time in the Sea Org only because I took advantage of the fact that they were giving us school, which is probably as a result of outside pressure, because they certainly don't give a crap about school. I mean, you're discouraged from college or anything when you're in Scientology. The only thing important is Scientology. I certainly did not have a normal childhood. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know if there's anything more heinous that I could say. I mean, I got yelled at. People say pretty mean things. I mean, they treat you like crap, and you can imagine a teenager going through that. It's pretty bad. I'm surprised that I wasn't worse off. So just wanted to go into more specifics on my time in the Sea Org. I'll share what happened after the Sea Org later. All right. Thanks for listening.